This is the Commonwealth, where we feature leaders of disruptive change. Today's guest is Luke Hansen, founder and CEO of CompanyCam. CompanyCam is a photo sharing app that helps contractors manage construction projects. The Lincoln, Nebraska-based company recently raised $6 million in their third round of venture capital funding, which brings their total amount raised to $8 million. Luke, thanks for joining me today.
Glad to be here, man.
Yeah, how was my description of CompanyCam?
That was pretty good. I mean, we struggled to describe it because it doesn't like slide right into like a normal category, you know, like oh, there's accounting software or a CRM or there's things that like kind of exist, and it's a little bit different. It's like it's kind of a project management tool. It's fundamentally a camera app, but contractors all have this problem where their work happens not at an office, like it's at a job site, it's somewhere else. And so the sort of daily communication, collaboration, accountability is sort of best done by taking photos of the work going on, and then we kind of pull all that together and give them like a live feed of what's happening at every job. So it was pretty spot on, but without going, for like 10 minutes, you're not going to really quite get it right.
Okay, perfect. Later on in the interview, I'm going to go in more into like the history and your background and how you started this. But because COVID is top of mind for everyone, how has the business done since COVID hit?
We were nervous at first, like I was, I think I was just following the right people on Twitter, but like I was from January, like seeing like, ew, this like looks not great, you've got this thing that every 5 days, like one person infects 3 people, and I was sort of like running the numbers, and I was just like, that could be really ugly. So we kind of stopped travel like late February, and then we started working from home, in March, and we were ready for the sort of construction industry. All of our customers, almost all of them, are like contractors, like someone that would come to your house and work on something, like roofers, window installers, drywaller, just anyone that would be a contractor like that. But what happened, I think, we actually had a couple of really good months, and everyone ended up at their house upset with the state of it. I want to like fix, like my next door neighbor like completely remodeled his entire bottom floor. Like I poured some concrete. I just watching everyone on my street even just do all of this work and talking to people. And it seems like, at least for now, the sort of construction space is still doing really well, while some other spaces didn't. Like they suffered,
Yeah.
So.
Okay, interesting. I have some friends who do sales for Builder Trend, and it's the same sort of thing, that the construction hasn't been hit as any other industry.
Hopefully it doesn't, but
yeah. So how did you start this? You were working at your family's roofing company, right?
Yes. So my dad owns White Castle Roofing here in town. And I started working there when I was like, 14, just like off and on, like I was done every job you can do at a roofing company, really. And eventually noticed we had this problem of like, we were trying to take photos at every job, for all the reasons I said, like accountability, like planning how we're going to do things. And people were like emailing to me or sending me memory cards or putting them in the wrong folder in the Dropbox. And it was like this just like constant problem. So I started looking. I was like, someone has to have like made an app, because this is like 2015-ish,
Okay.
I was like, someone has to have made an app to solve this problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not that complicated. We all have these like camera phones with GPS. It's supercomputers, we should be able to like take these photos, organize them so that like Taylor doesn't have to literally like take the SIM card or the SD card out of his phone and like try to give it to me, and then I stick it in the little like bigger SD card thing. Yeah. You remember those, and then you put it in the computer. It's just like, it didn't make sense to me, but no one had made anything, and I just thought, I was like, God, this is like, I think it's a good idea. I know that we need it, which tells me that probably other people need it. And so I actually hired a local software company called Agilix, and they built the first version of it. And then, it was sort of, I don't know that off to the races is the right word, because that was 5 years ago. And everything always seems like it was, I'm leaning away from the microphone.
You're good.
That was 5 years ago, so it wasn't like everything came easy, but, from that point on, we just started growing, and, I want to say it was March of 2015, I hired Chad, who was an engineer at Huddle, super sharp dude.
Okay.
And he was our employee number 1, and now I think we're at 55 people. And so it's like kind of crazy. We have 170 million photos, I think, stored right now, which is going up like a couple million a week. So it's like we've come a long ways from where we were, that's for sure.
What's your customer base now?
So we have like almost 7,000 like contracting companies using CompanyCam.
Okay, wow. And you touched on hiring that dev shop.
Yep.
Was it difficult finding people, or were they like kind of the only guys in town at that point, or?
I'm sure there was more people. I think I'd heard good things about them. You know, like what's really hard isn't exactly finding a dev shop, though. It's hard to find that like first technical like employee. I saw someone or like technical co-founder, because like a lot of people like me who work somewhere recognize a problem, and we all use apps, you know. So you have like an idea, oh, maybe there could be this app that solves this problem, but you don't actually write code, so you don't really know like how to do it. So then you have to find someone that does. And honestly, that to me is like the hustle. Like my job as founder CEO is to like find people to be here working in the same direction. You know, like that's my fundamental role, is to like bring together the vision and then try to get people going and get people in to work on it. And you know, if you can't do that, then you don't have a company. So like finding Chad was awesome. Like I started just showing up at every startup event. And so it was ended up being Startup Weekend in Omaha. And I went up there with a couple people, and Chad was up there with some other people, like doing people a favor type of a thing. And I was just like going around to like every team, like, hey, I'm looking for software engineers if you know any. And he was like, yeah, I'm interested. And so then it went from there. And it's like you have to, once you've got something, it's always like the next one is always easier. You know, it's like the first one of anything is always like the hardest thing. And then, I don't know, it's like I think it's like the Pareto principle that like, it's almost like success breeds more success, right? Like if things are going well, it's easier to keep them going well or getting better. Whereas if things start to go badly, it's like, it's like harder to get it back on track, or I don't know. There's something to this. I don't know exactly what it is.
So how did you convince Chad, that first employee?
How did I convince Chad? You know, I sold him on this vision. I think that this was that this was important, and that it was possible, and that there was like big potential. And to me, that big potential was like, we can make an actual company, not like we're going to make $1 billion. You know, it was never anything like that. And I think Chad at the time, he was really interested in having more sort of control and kind of like stepping up a little more. You know, like Huddle's an awesome place to work, but it's just big, you know? And so any one person at Huddle doesn't have as much, you know, outside of like David Graff or probably like a handful of people, have as much sort of authority or ability to sort of enact an idea that they have. Whereas like if you're the first person or the second person at a startup, like there's tons of potential responsibility, everything else. And so I think for Chad, it was that like ready to take more responsibility, and saw this as like an awesome opportunity to do that.
Yeah. And then what was the strategy to find that first customer base?
Yeah. So I kind of hustled around and just talked to local people that I knew. And so I got my dad's company using it. I got a couple like other contractors that I knew locally, and some of them are still using it, some of them aren't. Like we realized like one thing that we did wrong immediately was we were working on roofs. So when you take a photo on a roof and you like upload it, like you usually have a pretty good signal, right? Well, we had, I think it's Ep Concrete, they were demoing it with us, and they were working in basements. And so they were losing photos because we weren't like double checking that they uploaded properly, because we didn't even know there was a problem there.
Yeah.
And so when you're on a roof, it's different than when you're in a basement. So hustling around locally was number one. Facebook ads and just digital ads in general was number two. Like we are not, as a tech company, we're not really geographically oriented. Like we don't care if you're in Lincoln, Nebraska, or Omaha, or Cincinnati, or Naples, Florida. It doesn't matter to us at all, right? Like, and so Facebook is pretty good at helping you find like, oh, you want to advertise to people in this industry or something like that. So that was actually helpful. It really helped us grow. We partnered with manufacturers. So I knew like the big roofing manufacturers. I knew who they were at least to talk to them. And that took a while. I mean, that was a little slower going. And then, man, we like sent some spam emails, you know, like just bought a list of 5,000 emails and tell MailChimp shut us down. We kind of just hustled out like, stuff that like you can't, not all of it you can scale, but like it all helps to get you going. And then that's like, again, to this principle of like once things start working, it's easier to keep them working. Like now our customers will talk about us at like conferences when they're speaking about how they run their business. And it's like, it's just like opportunities, you know, like the more people that you have on this podcast, the more people you will be able to get on this podcast. It's just like, it really does. I don't know that it gets easier because like your problems just change, but like it does, like if you grind it out at the beginning, you get more opportunities in the future.
Yeah. And almost by every metric, technology is built on the coast. And you're doing it here in the Midwest. Have like, what challenges has that brought?
Yeah, I mean, hiring engineers is definitely, like software engineers, is harder in Lincoln, Nebraska probably than it is in San Francisco. And I say that, like, in San Francisco, you end up paying a lot more. The rent is ludicrous. Like, there's all a bunch of San Francisco horror stories.
Homeless is a huge problem in San Francisco.
Homeless. I mean, like, San Francisco is sort of like, well, I look at it as like an exercise in, like, on one side you have network effects of people are already there, companies are there, like, and these network effects are insanely powerful. On the other side, you have sort of like an atmosphere in a local government that is like attempting to kill the golden goose. Like, they don't like it and they want it gone. And they don't want anyone to build new buildings. They don't like, they want kind of the quaint 1960s San Francisco. And it's like, how long can this tech network effects thing survive with this thing attacking it? And I don't know the answer to that question, but anyway, that's San Francisco stuff. Local, we have started hiring more and more remote on our product team for like software engineers, designers, PMs. We have local people, but we also have remote people. And honestly, with COVID, that was what really convinced me that like this remote thing can totally work. It can work. And so we have people here, we hire locally, but we also just like open it up to the world in a sense, because if you want to get the best talent, like the wider of a net you cast, you just have more opportunities.
Yeah. All right. And then moving on to the venture capital that you just raised. So $6 million, your lead investor is a VC firm out of San Diego.
Yep.
And again, like the vast majority of venture capital dollars go to the coasts, and like very little of that action happens here in the Midwest. How do you get connected with the firm in San Diego?
Again, you start to, like, as you have a little bit of success, people start calling you.
Okay.
Like, it's just like, I think they have actually, and I know this for a fact, they have a team of like sales development reps that are calling, emailing. Like, I got like 14 emails from this guy, Francis, and I realized like after like the 12th one that he was like an actual human actually sending me emails.
Okay.
And I was like, I kind of feel bad for this guy. He's like grinding so hard. I'll take their call. So I like honestly talked to them over a course of a couple years when we weren't really like raising money, and then right at the beginning as COVID was starting to become a thing, like beginning of March, kind of we were worried that it was going to screw up some of our plans, and Blueprint hit us with a term sheet just kind of like not out of the blue. We talked to them, but we didn't like pitch with a deck or anything. And then we negotiated a little bit because we thought, hey, you know what? Like this is wise. It is wise to take some funding right now to sort of de-risk our growth, and then the light of the sort of uncertainty of the world right now. And so it's funny because I thought raising this $6 million it was actually incredibly simple and straightforward. And I just want to shout out Tolan Mabbitt from our team, former UBT employee. He did like 99.9% of the work of like handling just dealing with everything. And I just showed up to talk every now and then.
Wow.
But like, the times before where we raised like $1 million, that was like months and like pulling your hair out. I mean, for whatever reason, that was just way harder and way more work. And this came together very easily, almost too easy. But now that the deal's done, hey,
Yeah, yes. And where is that? So is that cash like being allocated to growth or hire more employees?
Yes.
For dev,
so
both?
It is, we're doing, not we're doing everything, but especially we're growing on our product team. We're hiring PMs, designers, engineers, but we're hiring everywhere. Like the money, a software business, your expense in a software business is people. It's not servers or like it's maybe your office a little bit, but overwhelmingly it's people. People write code, people do support, it's just people, and like that's what a company is. So we are trying to grow the team, and that we had this plan to grow the team, and again with COVID we didn't want to go through that uncertainty. So we're really leaning into the product side. That's where I see all the leverage, right? Like you can kill it in sales and marketing, and that's going to get you somewhere. But if you make an amazing product that people love to use, that through using it naturally shares itself around to other people, you have this huge opportunity for big growth in software. So yeah, we're growing on all fronts, but like especially we're using the money to grow our team.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And then moving more into the, like, I guess, operations today and moving forward, you mentioned you have 54 employees.
Ish. I don't.
Okay, around, around 50.
Probably about 50.
Yeah. What was the customer base again? I know.
Like 7,000
okay.
contracting companies.
Around the world, right? I read beforehand.
Very much, yeah. So we have, most of our customers are in the USA. Okay. We have a handful in Israel. We have quite a few in Australia, tons in Canada. Like, English-speaking world, we have some in Ireland. But, like, it's overwhelmingly, in 98% is in the United States. And that other, 2% is kind of, spread around the world, the English-speaking world,
parts of the world. All right, makes
sense.
And
Israel,
but how close are you all to break even, or have you already
so
gone through
we
that,
are.
or?
We are above break even at the moment, but we probably won't be as we keep growing and hiring.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's where our head's at right now.
Is it safe to say that you all are still in a growth mindset? Or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How do you what's the size of the market?
So Tulin probably has a TAM, a total addressable market, number. I think of it as just it's huge, right? Mm-hmm. I think people get a little caught up in some of these numbers that don't really matter. The total addressable market matters if you're raising an outrageous amount of money. If you're a $5 billion company and then you're going to try to raise $2 billion to capture the rest of a market, then you really need to know exactly how big that market is. Mm-hmm. Until if you're smaller than Huddle, let's say, you don't need to, you need to know roughly how big it is. You need to have an idea. I know that there is a metric shit ton of people that are contractors that could use our app, that build houses, that put on roofs, that cut grass, that put in patios. There's, you go to any town and you just see logos on trucks and stuff. And you're it's absolutely huge. We have an extremely small percentage of the market. And so Tulin has the numbers. And if I was pitching you as a VC, I'd be that's big. But
honestly,
I just look at that and think you got to keep focused on what matters. And I think of that as my job. The bigger a company gets, the bigger anything is, the farther away you get, or the more weird internal incentives you create. Mm-hmm. Trying to get to be this management level, or you get farther and farther distance from making the thing that makes that helps our customers, makes them happy, and helps us grow. Right? And so we have so much room to grow. I bump into roofers, we do the best in roofing because that's the industry we know the most.
Okay.
But I'll bump into people in a little group of 100 roofing companies that have bonded together, that we've been at their event every year for 3 years, and 25 of these people still don't even know that we exist, never stopped at our booth, never talked to us, never heard of us. And it's this reminder that, basically this reminder that the world is huge. It's bigger than you know. You don't have to actually have the math all dialed in. You just need to prove that you're making something that people want. If you can get 10 customers, you can get 100. I guarantee you. And if you can get 100, you can get 1,000. And if you can get 1,000, you can get 10,000. And it doesn't keep going forever. But by the time that stops, your head of finance will tell you that it's stopped and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. What are they doing now if they're not using your service? Is there a competitor, or is it still the Google Drive?
Hopefully trying to wrench their heads out of their asses.
Right.
No, it is. It's sort of good enough solutions, right? We take a process that's really important, which is the documentation, and we streamline it for the use case of a contractor, right? It sort of automatically organizes under the address. We give them this feed to see what's going on. We allow them to create these really clean, simple PDF photo reports that they send to the insurance company. We allow them to share a live link with the customer so they can follow along, stuff like that. And that's all sort of added value on top of the core of getting organized and knowing what's going on in the moment. So there are certain contractors that, let's say, they just either they're not feeling the pain, they've got a system that's working good enough for them, or they don't. Honestly, it's usually just the person we end up talking to, the owner may not be feeling the pain, but Pam at the office is feeling the pain, but she's handling it really well, and she just ends up being the person who gets the emails and drops them in the right folder. She does all the stuff, and she does it really well, and they're not actually thinking wow, we're spending this much time organizing stuff and keeping track of things in this way. And if we had this other tool, CompanyCam, we'd, save the time and whatever. So like, there's no real direct competition. It's overwhelmingly just like your camera roll, like that kind of a thing.
Okay, interesting. And so the software is sold through the App Store or Google Play Store, whatever stores on your phone, correct?
Yeah, so you can this is like once you get into this business, there's a recent tiff between Apple and Basecamp, which you may or may not have seen.
So I have a question about Apple next. So
perfect.
Yes, yeah.
Do you want to ask that one?
No. I go to the Basecamp thing. So, we can segue.
As to how we sell our app, recently Apple and Basecamp, which Apple, huge company, Basecamp is a kind of an old software company that like does really well, and Basecamp made this new app that they wanted on the App Store, and there's all these rules about how you can take payment and where you can point people to, because like everyone that's a software company wants to take payment through their own website, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and we use Stripe for payment processing, and Stripe will take like 2 or 3% or something like that, sort of to process the cards, but they like run everything and it's really simple. If someone signs up through the App Store, you have to pay Apple 30%, at least for the first year, and then 15% thereafter every single month. So they're taking this huge percentage of the money that you're making.
Yeah.
And so you don't want people to pay you through the App Store, but it's like all of Apple's rules are like, you can't point them to your website, you can't do this. So like, the bottom line is I've become somewhat of a part-time lawyer as it relates to the Apple guidelines.
Okay.
That, like, if you're going to allow people to sign up in your app and meet other conditions, and you're at some point going to take away functionality from them, then you have to let them pay in the app through the App Store, and you have to give Apple that percentage. And that's life, and you just have to deal with it. So you're basically weighing, should I let people sign up in the app because that helps us grow, versus do I want to pay Apple 30%? And it's sometimes it's hard to decide. Like some people, like Netflix or Spotify or a bunch of places, they will not let you create that account in the App Store. Like, from what I understand, you have to go to their website. The reason is because they do not want to give Apple 30% of the revenue there. And so they'll just say something like, sorry, you can't become a pro member in this app. We understand that's not ideal.
Yeah. What percent of your customers are on iOS?
Honestly, it's like 50-50.
Okay.
Or close enough to 50-50 on any given day, I couldn't tell you.
Okay, fair enough. And so there's been a bunch of talk on this exact issue as it relates to antitrust, that there's been like legislative talk.
Yes.
And then just like in the media that Apple's too big and this 30% cut gouges developers. What's your take on that specific issue?
Yes. So I think of this as like way more complicated than it would just appear on the surface, because like, I would argue that if you want to be in Apple's specific app store, then you should play by Apple's rules. They want to take a percentage. Like, I sort of like don't. There are alternatives. Now, sometimes there are few alternatives, and I would argue the reason there are few alternatives is because of intellectual property law. Like, Apple literally sued Samsung because Samsung made phones with rounded edges. Like, Apple owns 1 billion patents. So if you want to compete in the phone market and you are not Google, Apple, or Samsung, that has literally billions of patents that the other companies are I say billions, not billions, lots of patents that the other companies are also violating, because they're all violating each other's patents, but they all have so many of their own patents that they can sort of cross-license, and they sort of recognize that like suing each other all day isn't actually that beneficial, because like Samsung will win this one against Apple, and then Google will win this one against Samsung, and it's just sort of this back and forth. So in Luke's perfect utopia, we abolish all intellectual property laws, because intellectual property is not valid form of property. It's not scarce in an economic sense.
That's kind of a hot take to some
yeah. So then by doing so, we dramatically lower the barriers to competition in this space, so that you don't actually have to have $1 billion to make a smartphone. Like, because these parts are largely commoditized, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you can buy almost all the pieces. Now, it's a big undertaking, but the actual thing the reason that there isn't 10 companies making smartphones is not because that many people can't figure out how to do it. I mean, in China, again, where they just don't care about our IP laws here, there are 10 companies making smartphones.
Yeah.
But like here, if you cannot get into that space, again, unless you're like, even Facebook probably can't. Like Amazon, Google, Apple, and then you talk about these international companies like Samsung, Huawei, like all these other companies maybe can. But like, you just do not have the patents to protect yourself, because the only way to protect yourself, because everyone is breaking everyone else's patents, because that's how it works, is you have to have the portfolio so that if they sue you, you can sue them. We can't sue them, and most startups can't sue them, so there's no competition there. So it's like, I tend to think of this as like a recursive to the bottom, right? Like you create this one sort of monopolistic privilege, which I think that's what fundamentally what intellectual property is at its core. And then you get all these layers of problems and you start trying to peel them off at the top. You're like, no, we should like break up Apple. No, we should like, it's like, no, like if Apple couldn't basically sue everyone out of competing with them other than Google or Samsung, then we wouldn't be in this position where no one had alternatives. It's unlikely that we would, right? Like you look into the past, these companies don't last forever anyway. So that's my hot take on that matter.
Okay.
Which is a little, hopefully, accurate. Do these things still have to stop at 30 minutes?
So that doesn't, this doesn't. It's so fucking frustrating. So
I know.
That's why I just
that's a relic of intellectual property laws. Like,
really?
That is why. Yes, because there's an old, it's like a patent on a thing, and it was like decided that something over 30 minutes is like a different type of thing than something under 30 minutes. It has to do with like, it's like you start to like look into this stuff, and again, I could be like half wrong about that, but like it is the like cascading series of sort of horseshit regulations that makes that stop recording at 30 minutes.
Okay.
It's not a technical thing.
One, I guess, follow-up question from that. The CompanyCam does collect in app. So like 30% does go to Apple, to clarify.
For the people that pay through the App Store, which is a small segment of our customers.
Okay.
Then Apple takes their cut of whatever that is. Now, I think we charge more. Like, I think we charge like 19 or 20, I don't know, something like more than whatever our price was.
And so your approach is to do both. Is like you can sign up online, but it's more expensive if you do it.
Exactly. And like we are trying, like, again, there's all these rules. Like you can't call people and tell them, hey, go pay through the website and you'll save money. Like there's all these rules that Apple imposes, and like, so we have to like follow those, but we try to get people to pay through our system. Like that's the happy path we're trying to lay out for people. But if they sign up in the app, then they have the opportunity to like just pay in the app, and you cannot prevent them from doing that.
Okay.
And that's where we're at risk, because like if Apple throws us out of the App Store and won't let us be in there anymore, then like we're totally screwed. So we have to like abide by their rules, but it is frustrating, and I don't like it, and sort of maybe unfair, but I don't know that like, I look at it as like I said before, like a consequence of a whole series of things, and that like, like maybe one of these like top solutions of like ripping a thin layer of the sort of crap off the top would help, but like in Luke's humble opinion, you go to the source.
That it's structurally flawed is what you're saying.
Yes. Like I would, I'm gonna not go too long on this topic, but it is extremely hard to persist a monopoly over time. That is not, almost every monopoly goes away eventually, but you don't get a monopoly, I would argue, without intellectual property laws. Like, it's just not possible. And it's not even that it's not possible, because you get these sort of short-term de facto monopolies, but like, right now, you can prevent people from competing with you. Apple can be like, no, that's the way that we designed our chip. You can't do that. No, that's what, and so there's all these ways that they can sort of stop you, and to the point that like, no, those are the way that we made the corners on our phone. No, we are the only ones with this touchscreen technology. Like the reason there was this like huge explosion of like 3D printing stuff over the last 10 years is because the patents from 20 years before finally expired. And so all of a sudden, like 20 years of like basically no change like exploded into all this change, because now it like was no longer illegal to use certain technologies to build new technologies. So 3D printing became this huge thing.
Couldn't that stifle innovation though?
So the classic argument for IP law is like utilitarian. It's like if we didn't have intellectual property laws, then we would have less innovation. Now,
or it would hurt CompanyCam in specific, because like someone could come in and make your guys' exact
but
same
we don't
software.
have patents. Like we technically, I think, have a copyright on our name.
Okay.
Like I would argue overwhelmingly that like fraud law is enough. Like fraud, this is way in the weeds, but patents are enforced in rem, is what you say, which is like against the world, right? Like you and I don't have to be a party to a contract for me to enforce patent law against you, right?
Okay.
Whereas fraud law is I can use patent law to go after you. Like the classic example is, imagine you're selling fake sunglasses on the street or fake Rolex watches. Okay. Now, the person buying that Rolex watch, you would argue, is not being defrauded. Like they're paying $10 for a Rolex watch. Like they know that it is not an actual Rolex watch, right?
Okay.
They're not being literally defrauded. Like unless they're some way mentally deficient and they actually believe that it's a real Rolex and that they're getting a sweet deal from this guy on the street who's like selling Rolexes. Right?
Or we buy it as a gift. I've seen that.
That could be like defrauding someone else, I guess. But like, that's funny. I hadn't considered that angle. But like that person isn't really being defrauded, right? Like, so when someone is being defrauded, like if someone said, hey, we're CompanyCam, someone else, and was like, this is our app, CompanyCam, then technically they would be defrauding the customer because they are not CompanyCam. There's someone else. Now, but nothing of the code, like software patents have been eroded dramatically. And like we got sued by a patent troll recently and we kicked their ass. And now like we're going to kick their ass again, like because we're suing them for fees because like it's just this garbage system. Anyway, so I'm getting way in the weeds here. There is this argument that if people don't basically have a monopoly on monetizing their idea, right? Like you invent the squatty potty and it's revolutionary because now I can shit better. And if anyone else makes a thing that lets me put my feet up when I take a shit, then I'm going to sue them because that's my idea and that's my patent. Now that's kind of like an absurd one, but they actually, have a patent on that, as far as I know. And the argument from the other side is that like patents explicitly prevent innovation. And it happened with steam engines, it happened with airplanes. Like France and the US got way behind in airplane technology from places like Germany in like the 1920s because the Wright brothers owned all these patents. So no one else could like build planes the way that they could because they had all the patents. And it's like when you don't have patents, which for example, the clothing industry does not have any intellectual property protection other than trademark, which is why companies like Coach will coat their bags in their logo, right? Because that's the only way they could prevent someone from ripping it off. All other fashion, and the reason it iterates so quickly, is because you don't get to prevent people from competing with you, from copying your ideas. You have to just keep making new stuff. And so fashion happens at this like breakneck pace because it's all innovation. The only thing that keeps you in front is innovation. You don't get to sue the people that are coming behind you trying to do what you were doing last fall or whatever. You just have to move forward. And if you want to sue the people that were coming behind you, the only way you can do it is by stamping your logo all over your thing so that if they copy you, they put your logo all over their thing. And then, like we were talking about before, you can actually get them for trademark law on that front. Anyway, this is way in the weeds. The point is, CompanyCam, we are not suing anyone for patent infringement. Like, we explicitly are running on the principle that if we are not innovating, someone else is going to beat us, and we cannot rely on the government to prevent them from doing what we're doing better than we're doing it. Like, we have to do what we're doing. We have to keep doing it better, and we have to do it better than the next person because they can see what we're doing. Like, everyone copies each other. Like Zuckerberg is like the most ruthless. He just copied Snapchat. It's like the most blatant copying thing of all time. Took their stories, ported it right to the top of Instagram with like two middle fingers, and was just like, "Hey, we're doing it." And like
same with TikTok. They're doing the same thing with TikTok right now. They're launching a TikTok.
Yes, and it's like, I don't like. Again, my argument, I do think there's tons of value in creation. Like, I'm a huge proponent of like creativity, innovation. Like, I couldn't be more for it. And I would be less likely to use things that are shameless ripoffs of other things, because I value like the person who did the thing and came up with it. Do I think that they should have a legal state monopoly to be the only people doing it? I don't think that. So that's like, I think that if you want to write another Harry Potter sequel with Harry Potter and vampires, J.K. Rowling should not be able to sue you. If she wanted to own Harry Potter in her brain, she could have kept it in her brain. Once you write a book about it, in my opinion, that's public knowledge, and anyone else should be able to build on it and use it because everything we have, we got from other people's ideas, thinking. Like, it's normal. Okay, sorry, I'm going to stop this rant. I swear to God. I got 1 minute left.
Okay.
Actual things in the real world are scarce. You and I cannot both own this microphone and use it. Like you might want to do your podcast. I may want to do mine. Like it's one thing, and it is fundamentally scarce. It can sort of be controlled by one person at a time. Ideas are not like that. Like, you can have a recipe for how to bake a cake. I can have a recipe for how to bake a cake, and I'm not stealing your cake. You still have your thing. I still have my thing. An IP dispute is always about real, scarce property, money. It's always about money. It's about an argument of who owns the potential customer's money in their pocket in the future. And the sort of case on the IP abolition side is that no one owns that. Like, you don't own that, I don't own that. And you certainly don't, like, what IP law would say is that you somehow, if I write a thing on my paper or design and build a little thing, that you somehow have an ownership to stop me in that regard because of something that you've done before. Anyway, I'm not going to be down harping on IP law, but I think it's fundamentally illiberal and anti-innovation.
It's an interesting thought. It's original, so I appreciate that. Okay, so last question for you, Luke. What is your long-term vision for the company? Is this something you want to turn into $1 billion or get bought out by?
So I do. I recently wrote a manifesto. Okay. As one does. No, it's you could call it like a vision statement or document or something, but I called it a manifesto because those are way cooler. So I mean, I think we have this huge opportunity. Like, we're ingesting hundreds of thousands of photos a day, millions every week, and I think that these are photos that people would like to see. If people could see, like, the last 20 bathroom remodels that happened in Omaha, Nebraska, or something like that, like, obviously anonymized and stuff like that. Yeah. I think we are sitting on a whole bunch of really compelling content, and that long term we can help our customers put their content, their photos, videos, things that they're capturing in CompanyCam, to put that to work to grow their business, which will simultaneously grow our business. And so that's very vague, but I really, we have this huge opportunity. And I don't know that I want to, I'm not going to go into all of the details of it, but it is the case that our customers are sitting on what amounts to an oil field. This content is valuable, but they don't have the rigging and all the machines to put it to work, And so we're going to be helping them, dig this oil out of the ground, by capturing all this content in the field. And then we're going to help them put it to work for their business so that the contractors who are doing amazing work, right, are going to get recognized, and they're going to grow faster than the contractors that aren't.
That aspect's fascinating, because you could even partner with the product side of when you're at Home Depot, you can see it in action.
There's a lot of potential idea. There's still a rough idea. Right now, we are in the business of helping contractors get work done every day, right? Accountability, communication, documentation. These are problems that every contractor has. These are problems that we solve. But in solving those problems, it's the byproduct of having all of this content, of which a lot of it, our customers would like to share to put to work for their business. And the end consumer, imagine you're looking to remodel your bathroom, right? Mm-hmm. And, you may go to Houzz or Pinterest, and you want to see what's possible, But then you also want to find a contractor that you trust, that you can trust to charge you fairly, to get it done right, to show up when they say they're going to, all of these other things, right? So you may look at reviews, you may ask around. There's all sorts of ways that we try to find who we can trust. I think that we have this really cool potential opportunity to almost unify that, to take the browsing of what's possible and the local contractor that you can trust and make that one experience. So when you're looking to get your bathroom remodeled, you could look through, this company has done 47 bathroom remodels this year in Lincoln. I can browse through them. It's potentially very compelling, and we're in a really unique spot to do it because all of this content is generated in our app as a matter of course. It's happening every day. It's happening right now. We're not having to ask people to go out of their way to take photos of their work. They do it as part of their work every day.
It's part of their service.
Yes.
All right. Well, fascinating. Look, you're a blue flame thinker. So
blue flame. What does that mean?
Positive. I don't know. It's one of those on your IP little speech. I heard it and was I heard it in a positive sense. That,
thank you. Okay.
Yeah. That most flames aren't blue, but.
Okay, blue flame thinker. I feel like I've heard that before, but I don't know what it means.
I know you have a meeting in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for the time, Luke. Appreciate
Fist
it.
bumps.
Yeah.
Don't give people COVID. Yeah. Hey, thanks for doing this. I hope this works out for you. I respect the hustle.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna go get some coffee.